He invited everyone, the city's most powerful names, the music was ready, the table was full. And then every phone in the room lit up at the same time. By the end of the night, no one was left but him. The night belonged to Victor Hale. He liked that thought, it sat on his tongue like sweet air. His mansion looked over the city, tall windows, warm light, calm music, and a table that seemed to have no end, crystal glasses lined up like soldiers but gentle, silver trays moved in soft circles, caviar on ice, bread thin and warm, fruit cut with care, soups that smelled like home even when they cost more than pride, musicians played slow, so the room could breathe, guests arrived in waves. Investors, lawyers, local leaders, old friends, new friends, people who said yes before they heard the question, their smiles were polished, their jokes were safe, their phones stayed quiet, because tonight was meant to feel protected. Victor stood at the center, dark suit, easy grin, and eyes that rarely blinked. He spoke in short lines, thanked them for trust, praised the future, promised steady growth. He made it sound simple, like turning a key. He raised a glass, the room followed, he listened to applause, and he believed it. Servers offered small plates, each bite designed to impress. There were flowers that smelled clean, there were candles that never dripped, there were tiny cards with names written in gold, so nobody felt lost. Victor watched people take their seats. He noticed who leaned toward whom, who laughed too loud, who looked at the doors, who looked at him. He had trained himself to read rooms, years of meetings, years of private calls, years of quiet favors. He had learned the power of timing, the power of softness. He could say nothing and still make others speak. He could smile and make a promise without words. His company, Hale Petroleum, had been the story of the decade. New fields, new pipelines, new headlines. He had been on magazine covers. He had been welcomed on stages. He had been called a builder, and tonight was meant to seal that legend, a celebration, a reminder, a gentle warning to anyone who doubted. Victor touched the back of his chair, felt the carved wood, felt the steady ground under his shoes. He thought about tomorrow. He thought about next year. He thought about a tower with his name on it. He did not think about loose threads. He did not think about old emails. He did not think about the small people, because in his mind the world was a wheel, and he was the hand that turned it. Outside, traffic moved, neon signs blinked, and the city did not know it was standing on a thin sheet of ice. Dinner began with polite noise, forks tapped, glasses chimed, and the band kept a slow rhythm. Victor moved between seats. He placed a hand on shoulders, he spoke names, he listened for praise. Then a new sound arrived, not from music, a soft buzzing, then another, then many. Phones woke like a flock of birds, screens lit faces from below, smiles paused, eyes narrowed. One guest whispered, another leaned in, a third stood and checked the message again. The words on those screens were simple and heavy. Hale Petroleum had entered emergency protection, accounts had been frozen, partners had stepped away, regulators had opened files, reports said there were hidden practices, numbers dressed up to look cleaner than they were, and now the disguise was gone. Victor watched the wave move through the room. He felt the air change, like a door opening to winter. Conversations broke into small sharp pieces, chairs scraped, napkins dropped. Someone gave a tight smile and said they had to take a call. Another said they were sorry, but the word sorry sounded like distance, not care. Victor did not argue, he did not shout, he did not beg, he stayed still. He lifted his glass once, set it down, and let the room decide its own exit. People left in pairs, then alone, coats collected, assistants waiting, drivers called. Each departure made the chandelier feel brighter and colder. The band stopped without being asked. A final note hung in the air, then fell, and the silence that followed had no mercy. Victor stood at the head of the table, the host of a party that no longer had guests. He saw the lawyer who once laughed at his jokes, now avoiding his eyes. He saw the journalist who called him a visionary, now typing fast with lips pressed. He saw the banker who promised a new line of credit, now slipping away like a shadow. Victor noticed the small details, the way bracelets shook, the way a tie was loosened, the way a hand covered a screen so others could not read. He remembered a board meeting months ago, a warning delivered in careful words. He remembered how he smiled, how he said it was handled, how he ended the discussion, and now the handled thing had hands of its own, reaching into his perfect night. Someone finally spoke directly, a man named Brent Lawson, a partner from Houston. Brent said, "Victor, this is bad," and Victor answered, "I know," with a calm voice that surprised even him. Brent left anyway, and the door shut softly, as if the house itself wanted to be polite about the fall. Minutes passed like slow water, the hall looked the same but felt like a different building, plates cooled, sauces thickened, the scent of butter turned flat, candles kept burning because they did not know. Victor sat at last, the chair felt larger than before, he looked down the long table, so many settings, so many empty spaces, like a stage after a show. He heard the faint hum of vents, the distant tick of a clock, and nothing else. Staff members waited near the doorway, careful faces, eyes asking what to do. Victor waved them away with one small motion. He wanted no witness, no comfort, no questions. He poured water, not wine. He held the glass and watched his own fingers through it, clear and strange. He thought of all the meetings where he controlled the room, where he chose the light, the angle, the words, where he turned risk into a story. Tonight the story turned back. He tried to feel anger, but anger needed an enemy. And the enemy was his own choices. He tried to feel fear. But fear needed a path to escape, and he had nowhere to run except forward. He stood and walked slowly, past bowls of fruit that looked too perfect to eat, past flowers arranged like art, past a mirror that returned his face without applause. He looked older than he did at sunset, not by years, by honesty. He stopped near the musicians' chairs, empty now, sheet music left behind, quiet proof that the night had been real. Victor sat again, alone with cold food and cleaner silence, and for the first time in a long time he let himself think of the people he had stepped over, names he forgot, offices he closed, promises he broke, all done with a smile, all done with a reason he called business. The chandelier shone above him, beautiful and indifferent, and the room finally matched what he felt, bright on the outside, hollow on the inside. He listened to his breathing, steady, measured, the same rhythm he used in negotiations. But now there was no one to negotiate with, only time, only consequence. He took one bite of bread, it tasted like paper. He set it down, and the small sound of the plate felt loud. Near midnight Victor walked through rooms that used to feel friendly, now they felt like galleries. He passed portraits of himself shaking hands, smiling beside drilling rigs, smiling beside charity checks, each frame polished, each moment edited. He wondered who had chosen the best angles, and why he never questioned it. He stopped by a tall window, city lights blinked below, tiny, busy, unconcerned, cars moved like sparks on dark roads. People inside those cars probably did not know his name. And that thought should have hurt, yet it felt clean. He returned to the dining hall, the table still waited, a long line of dishes like silent witnesses. He picked up his phone and scrolled, messages from advisors, messages from the board, messages from strangers, some angry, some pleading, some pretending to care. He did not answer. He opened a note app and wrote 2 words, "Start over," then deleted them, then wrote them again. He did not sleep. He sat in a smaller room near the back, where the walls were plain, where the furniture did not try to impress. He watched the clock move. He remembered a man named Daniel Brooks, a young analyst he once hired and then removed without explanation. Daniel had asked for feedback. Victor had given none. Victor had said, "It is not personal," and Daniel had nodded while swallowing the blow. Victor had forgotten him after that. Now Daniel's name returned with sharp detail. As if the mind was sorting old debts, morning came in pale color, birds outside, newspapers dropped, the world continuing as usual. Victor showered, dressed in a simple shirt, no cufflinks, no watch that shouted wealth. He walked out without a driver. He locked the door himself. The key felt heavier than it should. He stepped onto the sidewalk, and each step away from the mansion felt like stepping out of a costume. The air was cold, honest, and it did not care who he used to be. He kept his gaze forward. He did not look back, because looking back was a habit of people who still believed they could return. Victor took the subway, the sound of tracks under him, the smell of metal and winter coats. He stood among commuters who stared at their own thoughts. Nobody stared at him. He held a small folder with his resume, 1 page, plain, no glossy branding. His old titles felt absurd, so he kept them simple: finance, operations, management. At the next stop he walked 3 blocks to a brick building with a faded sign, Brooks Logistics. The lobby was small, a plant by the window, a bulletin board with handwritten notes, no marble, no guards, no dramatic art, just work. Victor asked the receptionist for Daniel Brooks, his voice quiet, almost careful. The receptionist pointed down a hallway. Victor followed. Daniel was in a modest office, coffee mug, stacks of paper, 2 screens, and a cheap lamp. He looked up, frowned, then recognized Victor. His shoulders tensed for a second. Victor saw the old moment in Daniel's eyes. The day of the sudden dismissal, the blank reason, the closed door. Victor said, "Daniel, I owe you an explanation." Daniel did not answer at first. Victor continued, "I cannot undo what I did, I can only say I was wrong to treat you like a number." Daniel's face stayed still, not cold, not warm, just steady. Victor placed the folder on the desk. "I am here to ask for work, any honest work. I will start at the bottom, I will listen, I will show up." Daniel leaned back, his chair creaked. He watched Victor as if checking for a hidden camera, then he asked one simple question, "Why now?" Victor answered, "Because I finally understand what it feels like to be dismissed by a message." Daniel looked down at the folder, tapped it once, then stood. He walked to the window, thought for a long minute, and said, "I can offer you a temporary role, no special treatment, no titles, no shortcuts." Victor nodded, relief and shame mixing like 2 colors in water. Daniel held out a hand. Victor shook it. The handshake was not about power, it was about terms, and for the first time in years Victor felt the ground again. The first day Victor arrived early, the sky still gray, the office lights half on. He wore plain shoes, he carried his own lunch, he sat where Daniel pointed, a small desk near the printers. Someone named Kelly Reyes showed him the basics, how to log shipments, how to file receipts, how to answer calls without sounding rushed. Kelly spoke fast but kind. Victor listened. He wrote notes like a student, he asked questions without pride. His hands, once used to signing deals, now sorted paper, stapled forms, and checked numbers. At first his mind tried to take control, to redesign everything, to command, to fix. Then he remembered the price of control, and he swallowed the impulse. Phones rang, drivers called, clients asked for updates, small problems appeared and were solved with calm routine. Daniel moved through the office quietly, greeting people by name, thanking them for specific work. Victor noticed how that changed the room, how respect grew from small fair actions. At lunch, Victor ate in the break area, no private dining, just a table with scratches. People talked about weekend plans, about kids, about weather, about a leaky sink. Nobody asked him about mansions, nobody asked him about headlines. Some recognized him and stayed polite, but the office did not orbit him, and that felt strange, like losing gravity, then like gaining air. After lunch Victor made copies, entered data, carried boxes, and apologized when he made mistakes. He expected someone to mock him. Nobody did, they simply corrected him and moved on. Near evening Daniel stopped by, checked Victor's work, nodded once, and said, "Good effort." 2 words, plain, yet they landed deeper than any award speech. Victor left the building as the sun faded. He walked to the subway again, tired in a real way. His phone buzzed with more messages from the old world. He did not open them. He went home to a small rented room, sat on the bed, and felt the quiet without fear, because for once the quiet did not mean isolation, it meant a reset. Weeks passed, the office became familiar, the coffee smell in the morning, the printer jams, the jokes near the door. Victor learned everyone's names, Kelly Reyes, Marcus Dean, Jamal Price, Sandra Mills. He learned who liked music while working, who needed silence, who brought donuts on Fridays. He learned how the company survived on trust, on small promises kept, on calls returned, on mistakes admitted early. It was the opposite of his old world, where mistakes were hidden and stories were polished. One afternoon a client complained loudly. Victor felt the old reflex, to dominate, to threaten, to win. Daniel handled it differently. He listened, he repeated the issue, he offered a clear plan. The client softened, the storm ended. Daniel did not celebrate, he simply moved on. Later Daniel said to Victor, "People calm down when they feel seen, remember that." Victor nodded, he wrote it down. Like a rule for living. After work Victor sometimes stayed to clean the conference room, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He wanted to be useful without being noticed. News about Hale Petroleum continued outside, court filings, investigations, angry interviews, analysts debating. Victor avoided the noise, not out of denial, but out of focus. He knew the past would be handled in its own channels. His job now was simple: be steady, do no harm, learn. One evening Marcus Dean asked him, "Do you miss the spotlight?" Victor answered, "I miss the certainty, but I do not miss the pretending." Marcus laughed softly, like he understood more than he said. As days turned into a month, the staff stopped watching Victor for signs of arrogance. They began to treat him like one of them, not special, not punished, just present. Victor felt something new, a kind of belonging that did not require applause. On payday he looked at his modest check. He smiled, not because it was large, but because it was clean. He placed it carefully in his wallet, like a small badge of honesty. He walked home that night slower, letting the city lights feel ordinary. One Friday Daniel invited Victor to join a small team meeting. Nothing grand, just a table and a whiteboard. They planned routes, discussed fuel costs, discussed delays from winter weather. Victor offered a suggestion, careful, modest, based on what he had learned, not on ego. Daniel accepted it, gave credit, and the team nodded. After the meeting Daniel asked Victor to walk with him to a nearby diner. They sat in a booth. Menus worn, music low, the kind of place Victor used to ignore. Daniel stirred his coffee and said, "I never understood why you let me go." Victor took a breath. He did not hide behind excuses. He said, "I was protecting my image. You asked questions, good questions, and I feared they would slow me down, so I removed the question instead of answering it." Daniel looked at him for a long moment, then said, "That cost me a year." Victor nodded, "I know, and I am sorry." Daniel did not forgive in a dramatic way. He simply said, "I am not interested in punishing you, I am interested in building something that lasts." Victor felt the words like a door opening. On the way back to the office they passed a newsstand. A magazine showed Victor's old photo on a cover. The headline hinted at downfall and scandal. The cashier glanced at Victor then looked away. Victor did not pick up the magazine. He did not tear it. He did not run. He let it sit there, part of a story that no longer defined his next hour. Back at his desk he finished his tasks, then helped Sandra Mills pack orders for a late shipment. She thanked him, simple, sincere. Victor replied, "Happy to help," and he meant it. That night in his small room he opened a notebook and wrote a list: things I will do differently, answer questions, pay attention, keep promises, treat people like people. He read the list twice, then turned off the light, and slept without replaying the old banquet. He dreamed of long tables and empty chairs. But in the dream he stood up, cleared the plates, and opened the curtains, letting daylight in. In the second month a problem hit the company. A major client needed urgent rerouting. A storm had closed roads, drivers were stuck, calls stacked up, the office felt tight, voices rose, keyboards clicked fast. Daniel stayed calm but he needed hands. He looked at Victor and said, "Take coordination for the north route." Victor nodded, no hesitation. He called drivers one by one, spoke clearly, short sentences. He listened for fatigue, for confusion, for fear of delays. He answered with facts and kindness. He mapped options on paper, not fancy software, just lines and times. He asked Kelly for updates, asked Marcus for fuel estimates, asked Jamal to check weather reports. He did not pretend he knew everything. He stitched the team's knowledge together. By midday the plan held, trucks moved, clients got messages, tension eased. Daniel came by, saw the board, saw the notes, and said, "Good work," again simple, again real. Victor felt pride, but it was a quiet pride, the kind that does not demand an audience. Later that afternoon an old contact from Victor's previous life called, a man named Owen Carter. Owen offered a private meeting, hinted at a chance to return to big deals, to influence, to comfort. Victor listened, then said, "I appreciate the call, but I am not available." Owen laughed like it was a joke. Victor did not laugh back. He ended the call politely. His hands shook for a second after. Not from longing, but from recognizing temptation. He went to the break room, drank water, breathed, then returned to work. Kelly noticed and asked, "You okay?" Victor said, "Yes, just choosing." When the day ended, the team shared a small celebration, pizza on paper plates. They joked about the chaos. They teased Marcus for ordering too much. Victor ate 2 slices, laughed once, and felt something settle inside him. The new life was not shiny, but it was solid, and solid was what he needed. On the subway home he watched his reflection in the window, not a titan, not a headline, just a worker, and he finally liked the sight. A season changed, the air softened, and the office ran smoother. Victor's hands knew the rhythm now. One evening Daniel invited the team to his home for a simple dinner, nothing fancy, just food and conversation. Victor arrived with a small pie from a local shop. He stood at the door unsure. Daniel's wife, Marissa Brooks, welcomed everyone with an easy smile. Their kids ran through the hallway laughing. The table was real wood, scratched and loved. Plates mismatched, glasses plain, yet the room felt warmer than any mansion. They ate chili, cornbread, salad, and simple dessert. They talked about routes, about school projects, about plans. Victor listened more than he spoke. Then Daniel raised a glass of soda and said, "To second chances, and to people who earn them the hard way." The group nodded. Victor felt his throat tighten, but he kept his voice steady. He said, "Thank you for letting me start again. Thank you for not turning my past into a weapon." Marissa smiled. The kids kept laughing. The world did not stop to judge him. Later Daniel walked Victor to the porch, the night quiet, streetlights soft. Daniel said, "I hired you because you showed up, not because of who you were." Victor nodded. "I will keep showing up." As Victor walked to the corner he thought of that last banquet, the crystal, the caviar, the orchestra, and the moment the room emptied, he understood the lesson without drama. Luxury can disappear in a blink, respect is slower, it grows from small acts. He reached the subway entrance, took one last look at the calm street, and in his mind he set a new rule: no more towers built on silence, no more nights built on fear, only days built on honest work, and meals shared with people who do not leave when the music stops. He went down the steps, the train wind rose, he held the railing, and he felt grateful for the ordinary, because ordinary meant steady, and steady meant safe. The city moved on, and Victor moved with it, quieter, better, real, one day at a time.